Hi, everybody. This is Jason Henderson, and the episode you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago. This is the second part of our discussion of the classic miniseries It. We're re-releasing it because of all the interest in the new movie It, but you'll notice that there's a lot of ambient noise. This was before we upgraded our recording equipment a great deal. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I just wanted to let you guys be aware of that. Thanks.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week we continue our look at the 1990 miniseries Stephen King's It. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the Ben 10 comic series IDW, coming in trade paperback this month in May from IDW. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man from MonsterVerse Comics and a contributing writer to Rockabilly Online and MonsterVerse's Tales from the Grave. Say hello, Drew.
Beep, beep, Jason.
Hello, beep, beep. Also in Austin, Tony Salvaggio, writer of the Victorian mech comic Clockworks from Humanoids and Psychon, the manga from Right Stuff and Tokyopop, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
And also in Denver with color commentary as always, host of the Mom-Oriented podcast, Pod Mom, attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Hi-ho.
Heidi-ho. And beep, beep. And all of the crazy things that these kids say in this movie. Okay. According to Wikipedia, It is a 1990 horror drama miniseries. We heard this last week, but in case you're joining us this time, based on Stephen King's novel of the same name. The story revolves around an interdimensional predatory life form, or I think what Tony called a lurking sewer clown or something.
Which has shape-shifting sewer clown.
Yeah, that's
shape-shifting sewer clown. It can, shape itself into whatever the victim is afraid of. But it mostly takes the form of a sadistic, wisecracking clown called Pennywise the Dancing Clown. The protagonists are the Losers Club, a group of outcast kids who discover Pennywise and vow to destroy him by any means necessary. The series takes place over two different time periods. The first, when the losers first discover Pennywise, and this is like in 1960 in the movie, I think, as children, and the second, when they're called back as adults to defeat Pennywise, who has resurfaced in their little town of Derry, Maine. So today we are talking about part two. This is very special, but we love Stephen King around here, or we love to at least debate about Stephen King and the movies based on his work. And so this was a two-part miniseries, and so therefore it's a two-part podcast. We will see by the end of this whether we run out of stuff to talk about it way early. Who knows? But let's get into it. Part two, I'm going to get first impressions. Just to remind the cast, when last we left, we had introduced all the characters, and one of them was dead. This time, we see all the characters get together. First impressions, Tony. We'll go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go, and then we'll get into the plot of this story. So, Tony, first impressions, It, part two.
Well, I don't know. I mean, same impression, I think, because I watched it all in one sitting. So I guess similar impressions to last time. Is it the best thing ever? Probably not. Is it enjoyable? And was it a pretty decent adaptation, especially for the time? Yeah, I think so. So I'm still in it to win it on this one. Your mileage may vary, but I thought it was good. Like I said, it's not my favorite thing, so I'm still a little cold. I didn't go like, oh man, the It miniseries, yes. But because it's hard to be as scary as the book. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's solid. So
very good. Julia.
I'm just imagining, I'm just listening, Tony, I'm just imagining somebody who's like new to the English language listening to him going, what? In it, what? Your mileage may vary. That doesn't make any sense. What? Like
so many flashbacks of it. Right? So many flashbacks of adapting our book into French and going, that doesn't work. So, yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. Since I did watch it in two different, like we didn't watch the second half last week. So I'm actually glad I did it that way because they're very different to me, and the second half is not good. I didn't like it at all.
Oh, my God.
I don't like it at all. So, I mean, that's not like some, I like some parts of it.
I have no idea.
I like some parts of it, but I can't, I just really, God, the spider. We'll talk about it later, but that's just, ugh.
All right. Okay, good. Okay, we're off to an exciting start. Love it, hate it. Drew, what are your thoughts?
I still really like the whole miniseries on the whole. I don't think the second half, the first half is just such a good, just rock solid
hour and a half, 2 hours of TV, and it's scary, and the kids who are acting are for the most part really good child actors. It's effective and atmospheric, and Tim Curry rocks. This, it's still pretty good. It's still got some good scares in it. I just feel like it's sort of, I don't know, like there's still like a lot of really cool stuff in it, and Tim Curry again is like, this may be my favorite Tim Curry role, which is saying quite a bit, but
that's wow compared with Frankenfurter.
Well, the thing is like he completely disappears into this character. When you look at that clown,
Literally.
you don't think about Tim Curry at all.
No, not at all. That's true.
But I feel like there's something a little bit more TV movie about this part. Like the first half seems a little bit more cinematic, and this seems a little smaller in scope. And partly some of that is budgetary, and that going into it. Again, I still really enjoy it. Like none of this is to say that I dislike it. There's the spider at the end, and we'll get into that. But overall, still some enjoyable TV movie goodness.
Outstanding. Okay. And for my part, I'm not even going to couch this in any sort of terms of like for its time or anything like that. I'm gonna say, Jason, and I don't want to interrupt you too long. Yeah. I feel like anytime somebody, and I even just said it, I always feel like saying, "Oh, this is good for its time," is usually a cop out. Either something is good or it's bad. Well, what people mean when they say "good for its time," and there's nothing wrong with saying it, but what they're saying is, listen, when you, my friend, who I'm talking to about this movie, watch it, you may be distracted at first by elements of it that you may not be used to, such as green screen or such as, Godzilla has a floppy head, So for its time really means whatever they were doing at the time that they don't do anymore. And that's all that means, but it's funny because, so my short answer, I actually really, really like this. I've seen this miniseries a couple times. I like the second half actually better than the first half. I find it very enjoyable to watch, and I really enjoy the story of these friends getting together. So there's a great sort of comforting feel to the whole thing, and I find the idea of the friends getting back together and dealing with this shared childhood trauma fascinating. So I really enjoy it, and in fact. So later on, when we talk about the plot, we're also going to talk about a video that a lot of us watched called "The Nostalgic Takedown" or whatever the heck it was. And I really want to address what the guy brought up in that, because I think it's really interesting. I think the things that the critic in the Takedown video had to say were interesting and memorable, although wrong. And so it'll be good to discuss, and that'll get us into a topic of how can you say you like this when sometimes the performances are a little cheesy and the lines are a little cheesy and what have you. So let's get into it. Okay, I will give because nobody else volunteered because plots are dreary. I will try to give like a 45-second review of what happens in this second part of the movie. In fact, does anybody want to time me, and I can see if I can do it, or
that's okay. I'm sure you'll do it.
Okay. All right. Here it is in general. Last we saw, back in 1960, a clown, a demon that appeared as a clown would entice children, was killing a lot of children in the town of Derry, Maine, which is basically Bangor, and a bunch of loser kids who were being beaten up by a bunch of bullies gathered together and formed a small group that went down into the sewers and defeated the clown with their faith in childhood magic, such as turning an asthmatic's inhaler into poison and using silver and so forth. Now the demon has come back after 30 years of quietness. The one guy who has stayed in the town has also maintained a memory of the demon. He calls on all the others who have all become rich and famous. One is I don't remember what. One is a comedian. One is a famous writer, one is a big deal designer, and I don't remember what Stanley became. But anyway, Stanley...
He's an architect.
He's an architect. And what's Ben? Ben's an architect.
Ben's an architect.
Ben's an architect. Stanley's something else that's really great, but anyway, he was so traumatized by having to face the demon again that he killed himself immediately. The rest of them all show up in Derry. They gather together. They have a lot of Chinese food. They enjoy one another's company.
Real estate broker, it says in the Wikipedia.
Very good. And the clown is basically knows that they're coming and takes over our main character Bill's wife, and when she comes, and basically what ends up happening is that they once more go down into the sewers and find the demon, but then after wounding it, this time they chase after it because they don't want it to turn up after 30 years it's been doing again. They go down farther into the sewers, down into the old tunnels. They find an ancient sort of nest for the demon's true form that it takes every 30 years, which is a giant spider. They kill it with.
Is that its true form, though?
Its true form. I think it's like on Buffy, where demons, when they materialize in this world, take a quote unquote true form. No,
I will cop to the fact that is its physical form, but
right.
You know, when they allude to what it actually is, even in the first part, it's a great honking light, that can't really be seen.
Okay, yes. Anyway, it takes a physical form because every 30 years it wakes up to eat people. And in this case, it basically takes the form of a spider, except when it's taking the form of whatever it wants to project to you because of your fears. They wound it, chase it down, and then knowing that they don't want it to survive, the children who are now all grown up and have banded together rip it apart with their bare hands and then slowly begin to forget the adventure just as they had more or less forgotten it before. The magic that has been gathering them together sort of slowly dissipates, and all that's left is for Bill to try to win back the memory of his wife who's come looking for him and was captured by the spider and injured. Audra. And in the end, she slowly is getting her memory back, and so...
It's not just her memory, she's catatonic. I mean, he's trying to get her to be functional.
She comes back to being herself.
Yeah.
And that's it in a nutshell. That's basically everything that happens here. I wanted to get through it so that people kind of knew what goes on in this story. There's very few flashbacks.
I know there's already a huge cast, so it wouldn't have worked, but I think it would have been really interesting to have the plot be that there's more kids now in the present who are doing the same thing that those kids did in the past, and the adults are going to help them, but it's the kids that have to do it, because the whole idea was you have to be children. Like he keeps saying that it keeps saying, I should say, not he. It keeps saying that you're too old. Yeah. So I think it would be really interesting if they would have had to have partnered with children.
Yeah.
To bring him down, but anyway, whatever. That's I guess I'll write that as a sequel.
So yeah, and
or fanfic.
The beginning of this movie is really dominated with, whereas the last one was Mike Hanlon calling each of them and saying, "Hey, Cannonball, we need to come here and see, and deal with this demon." And in this one, it opens with all of them gathering together, all of them headed for the town in order to meet up. It's their promise that they would come back and get into the debate about whether or not they're going to defeat the demon or not. So, Drew and Tony, I have not read this book. I've read portions of it, sections of it. I have it. I just haven't read it. It's 1,000 pages. It's kind of intimidating. It took me like 20 years to get around to reading all the Dark Tower movies. This is another big honkin' Stephen King book. So I'll rely on you guys. What are the differences here? If a person's a fan of the book, what are they going to come in and shake their head going, no, or that's totally different, or how odd that they changed that?
The book is, for number one thing, the book, because, this was a TV movie, and the book is, there's no ratings on the book. It's just a book. The book is like 1,000 times more gruesome than this. I mean, this TV movie is kind of oddly wholesome when viewed in a certain light, whereas like the book is just grisly. I mean, I talked about it last week a little bit, but I mean, there's a large section of the book where they basically give you a blow-by-blow to a hate crime, and then tack on Pennywise as the coup de grace of that, and. Yeah. I mean, that sort of thing wouldn't have gone over on TV in circa 1990. I don't even know if it would go over well on TV now.
They suggest that a little bit in the movie where when she's being sexually harassed by the bullies, when the girl, now I've forgotten the name, but the Annette O'Toole character, when she's a little girl, she's being, the bullies are like pressing her against the wall and feeling her up and all this stuff, and she makes a big deal about the guy across the street just looks the other way and doesn't do anything. And that's her illustration about how the town won't help. But it sounds like they hit on that a lot more and a lot more gruesomely in the book. Anything else to be on the lookout for?
Oh, yeah. Well, one thing that's just still kind of, and I'd forgotten about it, then I remembered it whenever I was kind of looking up the differences, is like before they all disband when they're kids, the girl like gets it on with all the like.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
I
saw that.
You're like, what the what? Like I'd forgotten about that, and I was like rereading it and going, oh yeah, that's an odd thing.
I'm glad you brought this one up, because I actually did skim this in an article about like something like it was like Stephen King's 10 craziest scenes or something like that. And they included the gun barrel rape scene that's in The Stand, not to be confused with the gun barrel rape scene that's in The Gunslinger. I think Stephen King, I don't know, there are some issues there. I love Stephen King, but
Stephen King has a lot of issues. That's what makes his story so fascinating. I love that he just writes all of his issues right into the book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He said he was afraid of his kid being hit by a car, and so that's how he wrote Pet Sematary. It starts with a kid being hit by a car.
And all his alcoholism and stuff.
He uses this whole idea that if you say it out loud, it's less likely to happen. That's his reverse superstition.
Well, all the sort of psychosexual stuff going on in it kind of makes me wonder if he was molested as a kid or abused at the very least. I mean, I don't know enough about Stephen King as a guy to tell you that, but I mean, there's certainly an element of that in both the movie and in the book. I mean, there's the thing that
there's
Tony,
no evidence for it. He's never mentioned anything in terms of him being. I'm not saying that who knows what goes on with people, but he himself.
Well, like the thing that Tony just brought up. The thing that Tony just brought up. I mean, really. Because that's certainly, I mean, you can understand why they would have put that in any kind of movie, but I mean, that certainly begs that question of, when you're dealing with that sort of
what the hell?
budgeting adolescent sexuality. I mean, it's
a
so
little
taboo.
The girl, basically, so the girl has all kinds of sexual issues in the book because her father is obsessed with protecting her sexuality. And so to ground the boys and make them not
at one point he becomes possessed by Pennywise and tries to sexually assault her.
Right. And I haven't read that. So yes. So the scene that Tony is referring to, what ends up happening is, in order to regain power over her own sexuality and to calm all the boys down so they can find their way out of the maze, she has sex with each of them one at a time. And I got to say, that is the craziest shit I have ever heard. That is nuts. These are 11-year-olds. That is even this whole notion of this will calm everybody down. That is such a sexually, perhaps wrong, but it's a sexually mature idea that I don't believe that. I think this is basically Stephen King's sick-ass fantasy, and I don't know what. Yeah,
it's definitely like not what I would write. I don't know. And I definitely not missed from the movie in my opinion, but. Okay.
Well, I mean, think how much it would change this. If it's just, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we need a member of the cast who would have a different idea about this and go, no, I would totally. But to me, it would change the tenor of the section where they all come back as adults if they had each had sex with this woman.
I read a review. I've been reading reviews of the book as part of kind of gearing up for doing the podcast again. One of the things that is said about that sequence that I was just reading today is that, and this isn't me defending or condoning, but this one critic said that to truly, that was about the end of adulthood, or the end of childhood, I should say, in entering in adulthood, because one of the things that separates childhood and adulthood is sexual activity. But the whole thing makes me uncomfortable, no matter how academic you want to get about
Absolutely.
it.
It's an icky thing, and I think Stephen King, is playing around also with that. Maybe he wants to freak us out. Me personally, I think that probably some editor should have said, I don't know if this is working for me. I think it's too big, and see if you could take it out. But who knows? I think it's nuts because we all manage to be. I don't think it's necessary for these boys to become adult by serially sleeping with the one woman who is a member of their team. That's crazy, and also
well,
frankly, misogynist, honestly.
Well, in my mind, it kind of objectifies her.
Yeah, I mean that's just odd. It seems odd that in the end she would be defined not by being the one who's a really good shot with silver, but she's the only one who can introduce them to sexuality. That's just troubling. I mean, but whatever. So good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Tony. So we've discussed the book is a lot more grody, and also trigger warning. It includes this strange 11-year-old gangbang that happens somewhere around the
on the plus side though, it is so detailed. Like the detail, like there's like a whole chapter. The librarian, the guy that's the lighthouse keeper, that stays in the town and does all the research on the town. Like the chapters that like detail his history of Derry are fascinating, and that's the sort of thing that books really do have over film, is they have this incredible depth of detail. I can say that, there's some atmospheric stuff in this, but the town is really a character in the book in a way that it isn't in the movie at all.
And I would also say that that's one of King's strengths as well. In general, like anytime, that's why it is so hard to adapt. Like, and people go, "Oh, these Stephen King adaptations," you're setting yourself up pretty hardcore when you're even starting, because a lot of his detail is so rich. Some people would argue maybe too much or whatever, but that's part of what makes King, and and that's it's hard when you have to shorthand all that. And I think good directors can do that, and screenwriters, but I think that's the way it is with any of these adaptations. It's there's a lot to live up to, and a lot of detail you just don't get until you read the book. And then it is like, I think a lot of his towns and places, and the overall, like, kind of how he builds a community in a lot of books, you miss some of that because you just have to keep, you have to get it going. And so that's definitely like, I think that's hard.
Well, I feel like they did a pretty good job of keeping the essence of the book here, but they did, you naturally had to trim like a lot of stuff.
Sure, of course.
Well, the question is, how do you present it? Because, Stephen King could spend 2 chapters just describing, if one were to start walking down Main Street in Derry, Maine, one would see first on the left this and the person waving across, and all that stuff. And to be honest, he's so good that you don't even notice that you're reading thousands of words of just description. But in a movie, only some people are, like, think about Haddonfield in Halloween. John Carpenter does that movie is very short, really. And yet, somehow you get a feel that you know every corner of this town, He's so good.
Well, that's because you drive slowly and, because the whole point is that you're watching, you're always trying to catch a glimpse of the monster, and so you're always very, very carefully observing every detail. Whereas here, it's like people are running away or they're trying to get places, but there's not this feeling that you're trying to find anything, so you don't really notice as much.
But that's interesting. That's a thought. I mean, I think it's just that Carpenter likes to stuff every background with details about what this town is like,
True.
And remember how the beginning of that movie, like 20 minutes of it is really just the babysitters walking around,
right?
Because none of them have cars. So
but again, I think that's all about building up the suspense, because at some point you're worried, oh my gosh, is he going to come out from behind something? Is he going to peek out from behind the bushes? Is he going to be standing behind a fence across the street? Is he going to be behind the car?
Right.
It's like it's always someplace. And so even when you're just seeing people walk around, it's building that suspense. And this movie is not about, which is one of the reasons I don't really like it that much, is because I don't feel like it's very suspenseful at all. I feel like it's just, oh, here's something disgusting and scary. Oh, here's something else disgusting and scary. Oh, and now we're building up to the biggest disgusting scary thing, which is this giant spider that has all these people up in its, lair up in the in the air. They all float because they're in web cocoons, and I'm just like, that's stupid. That's not floating. That's being constrained against the wall. I don't know. That whole thing just really bothered me.
Well, I mean,
maybe
go ahead.
Well, maybe we've hit upon the perfect thing. Maybe Carpenter needs to adapt King and then Paul.
Oh, that would be so cool.
that could be.
It would be.
Oh, I'd love that.
It would be if you got Carpenter not phoning it in. Absolutely, I think that's right. And boy, that would be great. So what I really like about this picture is, I wish I could explain this and not sound like this is I don't know. I like the big chill stuff. I like the Chinese restaurant scene. The big deal of the first 45 minutes of this 90-minute section is that they all come to town and they stop, and Ben stops off in what they call the Barrens, which is this big wooded area with a lot of junk and a water treatment plant and just everything that a kid would want to hang out in and, in theory, injure themselves. He stops off there and he sees, another fat kid and so forth. But after that, he goes to the Chinese restaurant, and everybody's gathering at the Chinese restaurant. And then we do get this long, just sort of luxurious sequence of them hanging out at the Chinese restaurant and saying hi to one another as they show up. And it really takes its time, having these characters one at a time do their entrance, do their shtick, introduce their personality again, and then at the end of the Chinese restaurant sequence, they have a sort of supernatural buzzer as they all get visions of the demon that's hunting them. But I love this whole sequence. I love that they are able to compare notes on the demon, and I love that they just have Chinese food and joke around and seem like old friends. Somehow, this thing makes me really happy.
Well, and that part was really cool because so much of it was real. It was they actually were, because we watched the commentary, and it said that they actually did eat dinner at this restaurant. The people who are serving them actually are the people who own the restaurant. They're eating the real food that these people make, and they're actually just talking, even though what they said was we had story points we had to hit, but around that we could say whatever we wanted and just kind of ad lib. And so they're having a good time for real.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so great is that it's authentic, relationship stuff that's going on there.
Yeah. So before we decided to do this particular podcast, somebody would say Stephen King's It to me, and I'd seen it before back in the 90s, and my thought was never the clown. My thought, for some reason, was always it was the Chinese restaurant.
Jason, if you walk away from this movie thinking Chinese food and not evil clown, you are an ice
something wrong.
Yeah. This has to be I think I said this last week, but this has to be the mother of all evil clown movies.
Yes, I can't name any other evil clown movies, I guess.
Well, there's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. There's any Batman story with the Joker in it. Film, comic, animation. I mean, we don't have to dredge up every evil clown thing like we did last week, but there is no scarier clown than Pennywise, and I will fight you, and this is different.
Yeah, and we see him taunting them some more. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the magic that has brought these friends against Pennywise and why Pennywise pays attention to them. Because Pennywise appears to each of these kids and taunts them separately. Therefore, one must presume that Pennywise is concerned that, again, the giant demon under the underdairy that's woken up. It's woken up, said, "Oh, yawn, here I am, wake up. It's time to kill some kids, but hello, I know for some reason that the Magnificent Seven has come." And he appears to each of them. And so why are these people special? Are we given any reason to understand why they're special? And also, what is the nature of the magic that has caused them to forget everything that has happened, but is causing them now to remember? I mean, what is going on? Because there's a lot that and the script is kind of hand waves at what they've forgotten and what they remember. But can anybody kind of start to pull this stuff apart?
Well, I think it's meant to be slightly ambiguous. I mean, it's the magic of friendship, I guess.
But aren't other people in the town friends? Oh, go ahead.
No, but I think it's why is anybody the chosen one of anything in any hero story? The heroes are the hero because that's their quest,
Yeah.
Or
we're watching them because they're the ones that it happened to. Yeah, I get it.
Because that's the Magnificent Seven. You needed a knife guy, and they're the knife guy.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's.
But then also, we are coming. Why do they forget? They forgot because they left. Why do they remember? Because now the cycle is coming about where there needs to be a giant spider or whatever he's going to appear as, right? So I think those are the answers. Why? Because the cycle is about to repeat. So that's why you have a lighthouse keeper whose job it is once the cycle is going to happen, then he calls them all back. Why? Why do they forget? Because once they leave, that whatever power has had a hold of them, and maybe by necessity as well, if they were haunted continuously, whatever rules were enacted. And granted, later on, all of these things become part of the Stephen King Dark Tower universe. Why do they forget? Why, if maybe they would all go crazy and kill themselves if they didn't,
Yeah.
Because there's also the magic of they don't even know why they all actually all become successful as well, which seems to be kind of the karmic turn of being totally almost destroyed by this, entity. The flip side of that is once they've left its grasp, they turn into these ultimate versions of themselves. For the most part, I mean, they aren't all, presidents.
And that is very Dark Tower.
Millionaires or whatever.
That the magic of the Dark Tower makes certain people end up, basically, wealth just comes to them, and wisdom just comes to them. And I guess the fact that it's hard to pin down exactly why these 7 are drawn together.
But I don't think it is. And I wanted to say, Tony, I thought that was really deep. I think that the first half of the movie shows us that these kids stuck together and fought him as a team, as a group, just like they fought the bullies. They fought the bullies as a group, and everybody else just kind of is by themselves, and they kind of get dealt with by themselves. And so
they're special because they're special. I'm saying they're special because they decided to come together as a group, and it was, like you said, the magic of friendship that made them special. And then as far as coming back now, it's because they decided if it comes back, we're all going to get back together and fight it again together as a group. And so, they were held to that 30 years later. Well, and did you notice? I mean, it's really wonderful. The magic of it is really cool. The fact that they come back to town and the memories start coming back to them that they've blocked out. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of symbolism for suppressed memories and so forth going on here. But they come back to town and the memories start coming back, and that's true of anybody who's come back anywhere and confronted memories, even perfectly fine memories, but that you never thought of before. And have you ever noticed this? I mean, you think about like a memory that you think about every day. The memory will morph over time, like a stone that you've been chiseling away at. But if you manage to access a memory that you haven't actually thought of in the 20 years since it happened, the memory you'll dredge up will be purer and more real than before because you haven't been examining it. So there's even a protectiveness to keeping their knowledge locked away in that way. I love this stuff.
What's funny too in retrospect is when we were talking about this, I think about in college. It's really funny. I had a group of friends at Savannah College of Art and Design, and we always saw ourselves as kind of the leftovers. Like we weren't part of like the skater clique or the super art clique or the hippies or faux hippies. A lot of them, who drove really expensive cars, but yet tried to look and smell like they didn't have all that money and would clean up whenever their parents were there. But to us, we were all the people who just didn't. We gravitated because that's how we shook out. Everybody had their areas. But then later on, once I got into higher level classes and we, hung out less because we were all kind of doing our respective things, I was talking to a friend and he was like, "What do you mean? Like you guys were the biggest clique."
Yeah.
We'd often be like, "What the hell are those guys doing?" And it's so strange and funny in retrospect to think of it that way, because to us we were just like we were the leftover kid. We were like the loser group, but to other people we were just like this collection of crazy people.
Yeah.
You notice that, from your own perspective. It was really pretty funny to hear that from somebody,
Well, and to find out how other people viewed you.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about last week, and they were the loser crew or whatever, I just had this flashback of our perception was that we were, just like I said, the leftovers. We were these kids, forming together, and why? Because nobody else would have us.
Well, and I
that's
think
kind of how it is.
Well, and isn't that a universal feeling? Because I feel much the same way, and I think most people listening, I think very few people don't fit into that feeling of that they were outcasts and that they weren't accepted.
But I mean, you still even in high school, for example, you were part of the drama club, right?
Yes, right.
Or the drama kind of clique, and maybe you felt like, oh, nobody else will hang out with us. I was in band, and so I was part of the band group. But there's still a group, right, where you've all kind of come together, which is different than a group, which is still not to say that you aren't right about being kind of universal, like, oh, it's us against them. But this wasn't like our group of friends. It wasn't like, oh, it's all the metalheads hanging out. Although, a lot of us like that. It was, like I said, this weird amorphous shakeout of, it did end up being much more like these kids, where it's a really random kind of collection, but they all use their strengths at the end of the, by the end of the movie, to do something that is
Pennywise. I actually, and we'll talk about the ending in a second. I think people are kind of let down by the ending. But I actually, I like this second half better. I think a lot of it, I really like the romance between John Ritter and Annette O'Toole. I think that's kind of cool.
Well, that does have one of the better. That does lead us to one of the better scares in this half.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Do you want to describe that one, Drew?
So the John Ritter character was the token fat kid that every misfit group of kids and basically any movie, the Goonies, the Monster Squad, whatever, there always has to be Stand By Me, which is also Stephen King. There always has to be the fat kid. So John Ritter was the fat kid when he was young, but he's grown up and he's lost weight, and now he's an architect and he's John Ritter. But when he was a kid, he wrote the Annette O'Toole character this poem, and she's always thought it was Stuttering Bill, who grew up to be grew up to be a ponytailed version of Stephen King. But she always thought it was him. But so John Ritter's character goes into his bedroom, and then Annette O'Toole comes in, and she's like, "Oh, it was you, wasn't it? It was you." And they start to have their romantic moment, and they're kissing. And then John Ritter looks down and sees that, she's got the big clown shoes on, and she's wearing the clown outfit. And he realizes
He sees in the mirror. He sees in the mirror that he is kissing Pennywise, and he backs away, and he's got clown makeup smeared all over his face, and Pennywise's lipstick is all mashed up, and he says, "Kiss me, fat boy!" And everybody screams because it's funny, but it's also kind of creepy.
It is. And isn't it funny how this is Stephen King, and he admits himself in his memoirs that he revisits the same themes over and over again. So he doesn't even think it's a problem. He just likes to. But this is a revisiting of the thing that happens in The Shining, where, the guy kisses the beautiful woman, but it turns out to be an evil force instead, and an old hag.
Withered old crone.
Yes. And, so this is that again. But it's got a neat twist, because this time the twist is the next day we have, Annette O'Toole plays more or less the same scene with John Ritter, and now she's saying, "I figured out that you were the one who wrote the poem," but he's like, "I can't trust you, because in my mind I might wind up kissing Tim Curry, and I can't take it." And, but she's like, no, it's me, and he finds that a moving argument, and so their relationship is good to go. And it's great. I love this stuff, I mean, I actually like this stuff better than the Stand By Me business of the kids in 1960s.
I just don't find it as compelling as the story of the kids, especially since, Pennywise, the creature, feeds on children, so the idea of children banding together to destroy it is fascinating. And also as just an aficionado of old monster movies, just all the period stuff in part one.
You're right. There's a careening. Yeah, there's a crazy kind of. They're really just like, let's have a werewolf and let's have a mummy. Although actually, speaking of, the mummy shows up in this one. I think I like seeing them act together. They basically go and hang out and do business from like one big set to another. So
this is like a really awesome high school reunion, or I guess in this case junior high school reunion, except you're getting together to fight a monster.
That's exactly right. They go hang out in a community library. I think that's awesome. And it gets all torn up, And then they go to this hotel, this really lovely New England hotel, well, actually, I have no idea where it is. It might. I think, Julia, did you say this?
This is shot in Canada.
Yeah, so it's actually Vancouver. Sorry.
Yeah, Vancouver. Right.
But I mean, they're staying, and they're, so to an extent, you're right. It's like a high school reunion or just a lovely travelogue that occasionally is interrupted by a murderous clown. Go ahead.
Did we talk at all about how Pennywise springs the old bully from an insane asylum?
No. So
yeah, and that's one of the things that's really annoying, because he goes through the moon. He appears in the moon outside of the insane asylum at Henry Bowers, where Henry Bowers is being kept, he's the one that, you'll recall in part one, emerged from the tube, after seeing the dead lights he's emerged with white hair. And so he's in the asylum, and Pennywise shows up and tells him he's got to go. He's like, Pennywise says, I think that's going to be okay. I'm probably going to be able to kill these people on my own. But if I can't, I could use your help just in case it's backup.
Yeah.
And he's like, so here's a knife. He appears as his buddy, as the dead buddy, the young, whatever the guy's name is. And he's like, so what's his name? Belch? Yeah. So here's a knife. And so let's start with I'm gonna kill the guard for you, the warden guy, whatever the asylum guy is called. The security guard. I'll kill him for you. I'm going to turn into a giant clown body with a dog head and basically scare the guy to death, I think. I don't actually know if he mauls him. We don't see that part. And so then he's like, okay, now let's go. But the thing is, he has a real knife now, which is really annoying because where did that come from? Like, how is it that Henry Bowers has this knife? I mean, usually, I know that Pennywise is able to manipulate things physically, but does that now... he can project that power onto whoever is assisting him? That was kind of irritating.
I have a million ways around this.
So anyway, so he goes over to the hotel and attack. Go ahead.
What bothers me about that whole sequence is, he says that he might need help softening up the losers and making them afraid enough for him to kill them. But he's plenty strong enough to kill the guard.
I know. It's crazy.
That bothered me. I mean, it's a great, the dog-headed clown is a great visual.
Well, maybe it's the magic of friendship thing, though. It's that he's not strong enough. He doesn't know if he'll be strong enough to beat them since they're all powerful with their, their Wonder Twin powers or whatever they're. What is the My Little Pony thing, Jason? The friendship is magic. The jewel. What do they call the jewel?
Well, how should I know?
Yeah, because you have the same children I have. We talk about this stuff incessantly.
It's like the elements of
harmony. Thank you. I knew you'd know it. It's like that. Together they have the elements of harmony.
Yes, that's right.
I think it'd be scarier if you had dog hands and dog feet.
Yeah,
that would be really scary. Like it's all dog.
But then he talks like Pennywise.
Well, look, in the same way that waking up from a dream, you can incorporate the sound of the alarm clock into your dream. I think he doesn't really hand Henry Bowers a knife. I think he plants in Henry Bowers the post-hypnotic suggestion to go and retrieve a knife as soon as he's freed by scaring the guard to death with his knife.
I prefer to think that he just magically makes a knife appear.
Well, that is possible as well. I mean, Henry Bowers may have always had the knife and just now feels that...
If he can make balloons that are filled with blood, he can make a switchblade.
This is the man who made, crab fortune cookies that run around and attack people.
Embryonic chickens.
Yeah, but that's only visible to those people who see them. So if Henry Bowers gets an invisible knife, he's not going to be able to kill someone.
But the blood, they have to clean up the blood, so obviously there is a physicality to it.
Well, now remember, they clean up blood all the time that's not really there. Because they had to clean up all the blood in the bathroom that they looked at.
But I think it is really there in its own way.
What's his name ends up in the hospital, so obviously he did get hurt, Mike.
Yeah, Pennywise isn't a ghost. There is a physical. He's able to eat Georgie in the first part of it. So there's a physicality to the stuff that he does. Like he's solid enough. Like I said, he's not a phantom or a spirit. Yeah. He's just not completely corporeal either.
Your question is it so hard to believe he couldn't manage to...
Well, why the hell not? Like, he could turn into a clown and a werewolf and a giant spider. Like, why the hell not?
But the thing is, he's giving it the knife over. But how about this? Maybe he drew a knife. He's like, okay, I got to go up here as Belcher under Henry Bowers' bed, and also I need to summon a knife from somewhere in the woods or some supermarket down the way, so it'll show up in time.
Maybe he made the knife from him. Maybe the knife is like a little piece of it.
Maybe he took molecules from the bed and turned them into a knife. Basically now we're in the realm of what Marvel calls the no prize. Basically, The fiction doesn't tell us. We're going to come up with an excuse. We'll go with the best one.
Right.
So you know how we were talking about the remake and how it's going to be set in the 80s, you said, Drew?
It's going to be set in the 80s. So basically, you're going to be talking to people within my age group, which is strange for me to think about. Because this is such a baby boomer story. I think you're kind of losing part of it. But yeah. Well, we're about
terrible, by the way.
So so I'm curious what. Since it's a baby boomer thing, you get monsters like the Mummy, which is what you grew up with, or Dracula, or Wolfman. So what characters are these kids gonna like? I'm curious.
Unfortunately, all the major horror icons of the 80s are copyrighted. Like, you can't have it turning into Jason and Freddy and Leatherface.
That's what I'm saying, though. I wonder if this were retold, what would be the characters? I guess it would be Jason, Freddy, etc. Those are the new versions of those.
Werewolf's generic enough that I think you could still get away with doing.
Even geekier. Remember, it's not like those characters don't still exist. You have the characters in Salem's Lot who are obsessed with famous monsters, and so they've got the.
Well, I grew up in the 80s, and I still liked all the old Universal monster stuff.
Same here.
But
Forrester Ackerman changed everything, he made us all be able to be aware of these things that otherwise would have been forgotten.
But it is the language. I think what Tony is saying, there is a little bit of different. Like the language of like I said, a werewolf. I think you could still get away with, because a werewolf. The werewolf we're seeing here is it's literally the teenage werewolf from the old Michael Landon movie. But
I love that. Because that means that the werewolf shows up wearing a leather jacket. That is.
Well, he does. He does. You didn't notice that?
Yes. Oh yeah. No, I love both the original Teenage Werewolf, and I love Pennywise showing up as a werewolf wearing a leather jacket. Absolutely. I think that is like one of the grooviest little things I've ever seen in a movie.
But I think you could do a generic. I guess in the 80s, what it would most likely look like would be one of the werewolves from one of the Howling movies.
Yeah.
That was the popular conception of what a werewolf was at that point. You could probably do a generic. You did not necessarily have to do. You lose something if it's not specific, which is the wonderful thing about both the movie and the book, is that they're very specific about what they're referencing. But you could do a generic Jason type slasher movie character.
None of them is making me excited. The notion of that's what Darren.
I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to not set it in the late 50s and early 60s.
It drives me freaking nuts. This whole concept where people go, we people aren't going to be interested in a period story. We need to bring it up to date and whatever, and that just drives me insane.
There's a lot of things I do think you could do with a remake, but I think you're going to have to do it Lord of the Rings style. I think you're going to have to make, because this TV movie is also already really long.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to have to make it, do 2 even longer, maybe 3-hour movies to even crack territory that they didn't cover here. And then, of course, then there's the big, never mind the time period question. That's not, to me, I'm kind of against it, but you might be able to make that work. To me, the big thing is who the hell can you get to play Pennywise that is not Tim Curry? Because
we had some really good ideas
but there's nothing there's some good ideas, and we've been kicking around ideas.
Would make a great Pennywise.
No, actually.
No, I don't think he would make a great Pennywise. I think I put Javier Bardem. I think he would make a great Pennywise.
He actually I saw that, and I think he could be excellent.
Yes. No, I agree. I think that's a great idea.
Well, and what was yours that I liked?
There was 3. There were 3 that were kicked.
Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming. I
can't take credit for that. That was Jamie's idea.
That's a great idea.
Alan Cumming, the ones that were kicked around our house were Alan Cumming, Jackie Earle Haley, and Elijah Wood, actually. So I think those all would be 3 really different, but I think it could all work. But it's just so hard. My problem with someone like Matthew McConaughey has actually turned into a really interesting actor, but I think he's almost too much of a leading man to work in a character part. You can make somebody less handsome. That's popular.
Heath Ledger was.
That's true. Heath Ledger was really hot. I think he was a great Joker.
Yeah.
I don't think like the handsomeness. I think it's just I have a hard time. Again, it's a character part, and he's a leading.
No, it's a good point. That's true.
The lack of like the thing that makes Tim Curry just went into this with such a lack of vanity that he really every sequence is in, you could see he just really went for it and really threw himself in. And I think, those are really, no pun intended, because we're talking about clown shoes. Those are really big shoes to fill.
I agree. I love his lustfulness. I mean, he does a really good job with some of these lines. There's, when he's describing the floatingness of it, they all float, and he loves saying it. He loves
I love how he scrunches his mouth whenever he talks.
Well, there's this level of sexual ecstasy when he's talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's incredible. It's true. I agree. I don't know. I have no idea. And plus, look, we don't know who's on Broadway right now. I mean, at least I don't. So it's possible there's somebody out there that we're just not aware of who's blowing people away, and they're like, "Oh, Jason, you got to see this guy. He's going to be fantastic."
An unknown actor to me has an appeal to it. It's the people who do True Detective. That are the ones that are doing this. Did any of y'all watch that? I keep hearing it's great.
Of course.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think they'll be able to do a good job with this material?
Oh yeah, because they can do some crack ass. I mean, some of the stuff in True Detective is just nutty and really truly oh wow, it's like True Detective. It's like truly Pulp Fiction kind of stuff. By which I mean little p, little f, Pulp Fiction stuff. And they present it with just this complete, sometimes a little irony, but they just present it really straight. So straight that everybody thought that show was going to be about a lot more than it ended up being about. Which is to say, it ended up really not being about anything. It just fooled you with expert pulpiness. And so, they'll be great at this. I mean, and that's a great show, by the way. I love True Detective. But I want to talk a little bit about what is it that, because I want to talk about the video, and I think, Drew, you were the one who posted the video. There was a guy who did a review of it.
It's a nostalgia critic.
The nostalgia critic, and I haven't watched any of his other videos. But so he went, sort of scene by scene through this movie, and he just did jokes about it. And I suppose in the end, like I said, it's basically a stand-up comedy routine about it, which taken for all in all is fine. But his critique of this movie is the kind of critique that I hear often, and I don't think it's an honest critique. And it came down to I don't like that Stephen King uses a lot of the same characters over and over again. That there's that he loves to talk about bullies. In other words, a lot of it was, I recognize this pattern from other movies, and therefore what exactly? The thought is never quite finished. It seems to be, I recognize this pattern, therefore it's not good. So and speaking as a genre writer, we hear that all the time, right? Where somebody will go, oh, this is another X, path.
Well, one of the same criticisms that this guy lobs on Stephen King is why is everything set in Maine? I've had projected onto me is why is everything set in Texas? And it's simple, you write about what you know.
Because he likes to.
Because man, that makes Lansdale stuff really terrible, doesn't it?
Right.
It's so stupid. Oh, that kind of crap drives me up the wall. Why is this always this? I don't know. Because it's better that way. Because it's like what I like to write. And the fact that let's make a judgment call on what you don't like, and often that is on, you have to get the right editor, I guess, to believe in your vision, but, why is it always set in Maine is just, I didn't even watch that thing, because I watched, the description. I watched the description of what that was going to be, and I didn't watch that video. I was like, I don't think this is for me.
I got
it's
10
still
minutes.
It's still a funny video. I'm not going to say it's not, but
I don't know. I didn't think so. I thought that it was. I mean, maybe.
Well, I have the same problem with some of this that I do with other things. Where, like, for example, there was a viral thing going around the internet. It was like, hey, look, there's this quote unquote, 80s style thing, I can't wait for them to make this movie. And it seemed less to me that it was actually somebody who had a genuine love of things from the 80s, and more of a thing where, like, remember that stupid thing? Haha, that was so stupid. Check this out. See how stupid that is? Isn't that funny that it's dumb? Remember that? And I get really, really tired of, it's not nostalgia. People don't have, this isn't like, because nostalgia can be a trap as well, right? Like,
yes,
we can
nostalgia
can give things a pass that were bad because we're nostalgic about it. And that, I'm not saying we have to do that, but a lot of times you'll see something where people aren't grasping on why something was good, but they instead grasp on all the reasons why it's stupid and, again, Drew hates this, but of a time, right?
Right.
And so you go on to like all the like,
yeah.
Yes, I mean if you look at for example, if you look at the original Godzilla, and there are a lot of different effects, they aren't what we have now, right?
Yeah.
But some people will go, look at that Godzilla, that looks ridiculous, or stop motion effects. Look how
and if they say that, I mean, if they say that about the original Godzilla, then they're missing out on the opportunity to watch that movie and get a feel for what Japan in 1954 had to say about the atomic bomb.
It's easy, but it's easy to look at those things and glom onto them as opposed to actually taking a thing for a thing.
So think about this for a second.
And like I said, that's why I didn't watch the video, because I just, it may be funny, but I don't know.
I didn't even think it was funny. I mean, I'm using it as a springboard. I thought in the end it was pretty tired stuff, but, and I mean no disrespect, Drew, but
I'm not going to lose sleep over if you. I thought
no, but I thought
it was
basically just.
I still don't agree with the dude. I mean, he kind of dismisses anybody who thinks this movie is scary, and I freely admitted, and I'll admit it again, I think this movie's pretty damn scary.
I actually don't know if I find it scary or not. He actually found one scene fairly creepy that I actually thought was a little hokey, but it doesn't matter. What I was thinking of is, this is a phenomenon that we only think about in terms of movies, and help me make sense out of this, because I'm trying to figure this one out. Like, let's say I appreciate sculpture, right? And there's really amazing sculpture, and there's Rodin, and then maybe I also have like
not to be confused with Rodin from the Godzilla.
Not to be confused with the giant.
Unless you want awesome,
right?
Because I think Rodin, the giant bird, as a sculptor and peddling his art, would be
great. Rodin by Rodin. That would be awesome.
It's the next retrospective, guys. We're still talking about clowns.
No, but imagine I also have some pre-Columbian pieces, where the bodies are sort of squat and malformed, and my enjoyment of those pieces of art and what they might say, or the stories that are told on the side of a Greek urn, it's not affected by my going, well, the story that this Grecian urn tells is interesting, but I really can't, their lack of perspective just takes me right out of it. It doesn't make any sense at all to say that, It's a Grecian urn. And yet somehow...
It's good for its time.
Right. This Grecian urn is trying to tell the story of Hercules, and I guess it's good for its time, but, that doesn't make any sense at all.
That would be hilarious to have an art critic like that.
I mean... So, but how come...
Etruscan, you lost me. Oh.
I mean, but we do this with movies, and I don't get it. I don't understand. Do movies not work anymore? That's what I can't figure out.
But I don't believe that, because when I was a kid, I had all the cutting edge, what was cutting edge at the time, and I still loved King Kong.
Right. That's right.
I think if you come into something bringing this perspective of like, I'm too sophisticated for this because this is from another time, then yeah, of course it's not going to work for you. But the thing is if you just come into something with a pure thought and will just enjoy something for its own merit and suspend your disbelief for a second.
I think the synopsis is, things don't work for terrible people.
Well,
I won't even say terrible. I'll just say cynical.
Well, no, I wouldn't even go that far. Like there were some people on the Facebook page who I know are not cynical people who don't really regard this as a good piece. For me, wasn't their criticism also is that it wasn't as much like the book as it could have been, which I will say is fair. But now that I have become
familiar with the book and it's fresh on my mind, I can say I enjoy the book, but I also really enjoy this movie.
Well, another criticism that at least I have, and I know that even the director mentions, is this whole Audra damsel in distress piece, which is just stuck in there and it's so awkward and irritating that, she comes to look for her husband. I guess he's her husband. I don't know if they're married or whatever, but anyway, and is immediately abducted by it, as in the form of this gas guy, this guy at the gas station, and so then she's put up into the weird web cocoon thing, and he has to go and rescue her, and then he has to rescue her again from her catatonia using the magic bike. And it's kind of irritating and old-fashioned and didn't need to be in there, I don't think.
No, but it's funny to me that, I agree that does drag down the second half of the story. And I'll freely admit there are plot problems here. So, just to close out that thought, about what is relative badness, I'm not even completely sure. I'm reaching the point now where I think that all the movie needs is to do interesting things to me.
Well, that's the thing. This movie, we did Children of the Corn just a few weeks back, and I find that movie to be boring. This movie has some flaws, but it's not dull.
Right. But okay, so getting to the damsel in distress thing, it's weird to me. The director takes credit for the screenplay of the second half. He says, I loved the screenplay of the first half. The second half needed a lot of work, so I ended up rewriting it. But he still whines a lot about this damsel in distress storyline. So he seems stuck with it. And I don't know if maybe he was just in a hurry and he now feels like he should have taken more time and gotten rid of that, or who knows? I mean, I don't know. But you're right that it's just sort of out of nowhere. There's basically just a few scenes that the woman is in. We're not really that invested in her character. So the fact that the climax or the denouement of the movie includes this final payoff of getting her to wake up again isn't necessary. You'd be perfectly happy just to have a denouement where they just sort of go their separate ways and suffer whatever it is that they're going to suffer. Did anybody else find themselves distracted by the storyline of the wife suddenly showing up?
I don't know that I was distracted, but I agree that it doesn't feel emotionally satisfying, even though I will say I think the part where the gas station attendant turns into Pennywise is kind of creepy.
No, yeah, that's pretty good. It is. We've danced around and we haven't talked about the fact that, yes, when they go down into the cave to kill the demon finally appears as a giant spider. And the main problem with the giant spider is that, it's a big plastic spider. And his options were he could do the spider creature, which we can make scary spiders, or he could have maybe kept it in shadow, or he could have made it a completely, he could have done it differently. He could have, for instance, had an animated creature or a creature that's just light, and he went with a big, model.
Well, the spider is a concept from the novel, but it's a little bit more metaphysical in the book.
Right. Plus, anything can pay off better in a book.
Yeah, but the other thing is, and this is my whole thing about the spider. You are emotionally invested in Pennywise.
Yeah.
You Pennywise is the villain of the piece. When it becomes this creature, it might as well be the Wolfman or the Mummy or all these other creatures that it's been turning into. Whereas, Pennywise is the thing with the personality. That is who you want to see them take down. And that's why, ultimately, I feel like the first half is more satisfying, is because the confrontation is actually with Pennywise.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what everybody in the commentary says, too. They all say the same thing, which is, should have been the clown.
Yeah. They could have had a big
Pennywise
fight with
is
the clown.
scarier than the damn spider.
Yeah.
The clown could have turned himself into 7 different versions of himself.
Right. He could have become the spider and just had his clown head. I mean, that would have been terrifying.
Yeah, I was going to say a spider with a big clown head. That would be pretty crazy.
Man, I like that
idea.
idea.
Into that.
You should do this for a living. That's awesome, Julia.
Maybe if they had more money, they could have made the spider a little bit more convincing. I do like the way they kind of gang up on it and savage it once they've injured it.
I love that they tear it apart with their bare hands. Yeah. No, that's wonderful.
That's kind of cool. But ultimately, what you really want is them to sock that damn clown and his big red nose. And, it's just not. I love my big bug movies. I love them. I have a certain fondness even for eight-legged freaks. But I just don't feel like that. Again, it just doesn't resonate because that's not who you've been projecting your anxiety on for the past 3 hours when you've been watching this movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that feels disappointing. And basically, in other words, about the end of the movie, in the last 20 minutes or so, it takes some turns that sort of lose us. And I think possibly this is what poisons people against the whole film is a couple of these choices that have a lot more to do with budget.
Let us not forget that in the book there's a eternal turtle.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of weirdness. Like you're going along and like clown's really scary, and then like not completely out of the blue, but close to out of the blue is a lot of weird crap to digest. Where you're like, okay.
It's funny because the eternal turtle shows up in the Dark Tower as well.
Well, it's also
apparently Pennywise actually does survive his second round with the Losers Club. Wow. He shows up in Dreamcatcher.
No kidding.
It's not
Pennywise
surprising, because Pennywise, he's not really the spider. He's just this evil force that turns up every 30 years. I mean, to believe, I can believe that they could put him down for now, but to defeat him forever would take a lot more than just, power of friendship or whatever. I mean, I think it's going to take. I don't know what it would take. I can't imagine. I don't know if it's possible.
Well, there was something that I was reading, that was talking about like what if you could tack two creatures from Stephen King up against one another, who would you like to see fight Pennywise? And ultimately, as overblown as I said, I want to see Pennywise versus the Overlook Hotel.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let me read you this interesting, this is a quotation from the Dark Tower Wiki. It says, in It, the turtle is the longtime enemy of the creature. This is so wonderful, because since I haven't read this book, it's weird to hear this. It's the longtime enemy of the creature It. In 1958, the turtle communicates with Bill for a moment while Bill is under an illusion created by It. Bill pleads for help from the turtle in defeating It, but the turtle says he does not get involved with these matters. Pleading again, the turtle simply gives some advice in it that Bill must stand by his friends and perform the ritual of Chud, which, by the way, involves kissing the clown on the mouth, wrapping tongues with the demon in order to defeat it. In 1985, when Bill and the remaining member of the Losers Club return to finally kill It, Bill discovers the turtle has died sometime after their last meeting in 1958.
I bet he kept him in a chest like everybody, like all the other kids did with box turtles. Poor box turtle. No, I know.
The turtle is eternal. How did it die?
I don't know.
It's relatively eternal.
And apparently it's not really there. He just shows up. We don't know if maybe when he returns, he just learns, like, through the grapevine that the turtle died somewhere. But I find that fascinating. So this sounds like Stephen King really just going nuts and having fun, like going. And then a turtle appears to him and says, "You must defeat the clown. I wish I could help. Goodbye."
Well, it's kind of that way, too. Like, I mean, a lot of people, even though it's really interesting and it's since become canon, but The Stand is the same way. Like, you have a relatively grounded book until, like, one guy turns out to be the devil.
Yeah. That's true.
So let's be fair here. This isn't grounded. Even if you took all the
no, what I'm saying
cosmic turtles out of it, it's still about a shape-shifting sewer
I'm not
clown.
saying this one is grounded. What I'm saying is there's a tendency at the end for crazy crap to happen that you definitely were like, where did that come from? And like I said, a lot of people I knew, it really bugged them that there was a supernatural element to, for example, The Stand.
Yeah.
Which was, up until a point, it's a fairly, this thing happens and it's pretty well grounded. This is not grounded in the same way, but the turtle thing, definitely, as a reader, I can't remember anybody going, oh yeah, well the turtle part, that had to happen. Like you knew that was coming.
I love Stephen King's just desire to do those things.
Sure.
I think it's cool. I love seeing anytime that a writer, this is the flip side to the craziness of the 11-year-old scene we talked about earlier. I love that Stephen King will just go, fuck it, I want to have a wise turtle show up. That's my thing. And great, awesome. I'm all for that.
It's turtles all the way down.
Yes, it is. It's Turtles All the Way Down.
Gamera. It's Gamera. See?
Well, there's also the legend in Terry Pratchett uses. The whole world, Discworld, is on top of elephants on top of a turtle, and the turtle flies through space. And I think that's what I was quoting.
It's Turtles All the Way Down.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I wonder actually, Stephen King being the age he is, I wonder if this is a quiet nod to Gamera, honestly. Because the way the turtle gets referred to as the friend to everyone and so forth in the Dark Tower leads you to think this is genuinely Stephen King's Gamera nod, or that he would say that Gamera is an our-world manifestation of the love of the turtle. So I don't know.
Well, the real question is, could Gamera defeat Pennywise?
Absolutely. I have to.
Could Godzilla defeat?
But remember that if that were to happen, Pennywise would see Gamera, and then he would go whoa, and he would grow to be
He would be
600 feet tall.
Right.
And
See, with Godzilla.
I'm really wishing this was made in Japan now.
Well, I learned something. There's
Ultraman.
an Indonesian remake of it. There already is at least one remake, and I've been staring myself a lot. It's on YouTube. It's called Whoa.
That sounds awesome.
All right, well, we should wrap up, though. It's almost almost an hour now.
Do we even need to do our final thoughts? We should definitely do our final thoughts and then do endorsements. I beg everybody's indulgence for sticking with us for this long as we discuss it and the possibility of a Godzilla-sized Pennywise.
I really want this Ultraman It thing to happen.
Yes.
In my head, it's awesome.
Well, you should draw it as a cartoon. I mean, what an awesome web cartoon that would be. That's a great idea.
Gamera comes to dairy.
Yes. Randall Flagg could also get 400 feet tall, and
yeah, Darren in the comments.
So Stu Redman would have to find some way to become Ultraman. That would be the way around. From the guy from.
Of course. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Final thoughts. We'll go the same direction. I think we did. It was Tony, Drew, Julia, then me. So Tony, half a minute. Final thoughts, and then we'll come back around for endorsement. Go, man.
I still think there's a decent amount of cool stuff in here. Again, it's not something I'm going to watch a bunch of times, and I can't even remember the last time I saw it. I know I've seen it at least once after it showed originally, which I did catch it on TV at the time. But I don't know. The book is better, and even when I saw
the book is always better, Tony. Come on.
Yeah, but. For this, it did kind of leave me cold, but I still think it's worth, checking it out. It's a decent adaptation. There's a lot of melodrama. It does have the spider thing, but I think as a King completist, everyone should check it out at least once. So.
Very good. Drew, final thoughts?
You're skipping over Julia.
That's okay. You can go.
Was that how it was supposed to go? I apologize.
I
thought Julia was going last this time. I am sorry.
I insist ladies first.
All right. Well, I pretty much said everything. I don't like it in general, but mostly because of the end. But I do like the relationship between the friends, especially when they're eating dinner. I don't like gross out scares. I didn't like the whole business with at one point when they're having the dinner, the fortune cookies start hatching out these horrific things. One of them has an eyeball and one of them sprouts out spider legs and stuff like that. That I didn't like. But I got it. I mean, it was supposed to be, remind us that we're in a horror movie. But so there's pieces that I like, but I really like the first part better because I really thought the whole story with the kids was great and interesting, and there was more of the Tim Curry stuff. So, and you know what? We never even mentioned poor Stan, who died and then came back as a talking head to talk to everybody
awesome.
in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And the scare. Oh, by the way, the haunting of the library is pretty awesome. That's actually kind of a neat scene. But anyway, so there was a couple of good things in there. All right, that's it.
Awesome. Drew, final thoughts?
I don't like it as much as part one, but I do like it. As I said, I like the whole miniseries. It's in my top 5 of Stephen King adaptations. I think, I have a fondness for it as an interesting adaptation, especially, coming away from the book so recently. There's a lot of stuff they had to cut out, but I think they did a good job basically keeping the general tone of the book and, adding a few interesting things. And, of course, Tim Curry is utterly terrifying. And good luck, Hollywood, finding something that can top that. Or should I say it? And I don't know, good. I just really enjoyed revisiting this, and I like I said last week, I felt like I confronted a couple of old ghosts of my own looking into this. So I've liked doing this particular retrospective probably the best out of all the ones that we've done.
That's great.
Very cool. Does that leave me? Did we do everybody? Okay. So I have nothing more to add. I actually really enjoyed this, and now I've seen it numerous times. Tim Curry's performance is pretty cool, but for me, this is more just a TV movie with some scares. I love the depiction of the adult relationships, and I thought it was pretty mature. Yes, it's melodramatic at times, but that doesn't bother me. I liked how I was responding to it, and so therefore, that's good enough for me. All right. Let's go around to endorsements. We could go the same way. If you have anything, you might not have anything. But if there's something you've been coming across in the past week that you really have to share, then share.
I have nothing, so you can skip me.
You have nothing, so we will skip Julia. She has encountered no pop culture that she wants to share. Tony, do you have anything?
I actually was thinking this week about something, and I've kind of been what I found on Amazon that somebody re-released a book called The Codex Seraphinius by Luigi Serafini, and it's a really, really weird book. It's basically like a catalog of another planet or another dimension, written a script that is totally made up, and there's a Rosetta Stone that will, in fact, decrypt that, but only into another made-up script. And it's this fascinating hardcover book of just these weird creatures and flora and fauna and kind of the rules for this thing, and nobody kind of quite knows exactly how it all came about, but it used to be really, really expensive to find a copy, in the order of hundreds of dollars, and I even looked when I got a chance to go to Italy and try to find one. I first saw it when I was in college, and it looks like it used to be $80, but now it's hovering right around $98 on Amazon. You can get this really strange book, and people gripe about some of the things in this edition, but I found that, when I got it for like $80 to get this weird kind of, especially for artists, I don't know, something about it just really, when my roommate at the time showed me this book, it was just really, really cool. And I think it's not, specifically monster, there's a lot of weird metamorphosis things in it. It's a really cool style, and just the whole kind of pseudo-mystery around it makes it kind of cool, too. So I'll post the link.
Wonderful.
But
it's a
really bizarre book. I'll post a couple of, people, have talked about it, and, as well. So the fact that it's fairly affordable, where, a collectible edition I noticed is going for like $750, and I think it hovered around $300 at least for years and years and years, and people kept stealing them. I know that there used to be one at the UT library, and it's gone, and somebody, I think, told me the one at SCAD got stolen at some point too, so boo to those people.
I hate when that happens.
But yeah, it's I don't know. It's really cool. The fact that I have a copy now is really, after a long time, is kind of cool. So neat.
Awesome. That's a really great suggestion. Drew, did you have any recommendations this month?
Well, I want to point out that Halloween Man issue 1 is available now on Comixology, as well as Hackslash versus Halloween Man. They're both on there at relatively low prices, and if you have a Comixology account, please go on there, download it, go to my Facebook, Halloween Man Facebook group, let me know what you think. I know there's been a lot of back and forth about the acquisition of Comixology by Amazon, and there's a lot of people ruffled feathers about that, but as somebody operating as a smaller publisher of comics and comics on the smaller level, please, Comixology is still a wonderful thing for small publishers like Monster and myself. So please still keep an open mind and go check it out. Also want to thank Greg for posting the audiobook of it, which is how I've been exploring this universe further for the last week or so. I posted the link up on the group. If you guys have only seen the movie and have never read the book, the audiobook is a lot of fun to listen to, although be prepared.
Who reads it?
I have no idea, but he's doing it. He does a great job. He puts a lot of personality in it. I love listening to King read his own stuff. I kind of wish that was the case here, but the guy reading it, and I don't know who it is, and I'm sorry about that. It does an excellent job. And be prepared. It is 7 hours long.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of there's like there's like a day's worth of audiobook there. But
if you have a regular commute, you could knock that out in like a week and a half or so.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally worth digging into. And
that's a great idea.
Like I said, if you've only seen the movie, here's your chance to explore the book for free. And I, again, just got to say, really enjoyed visiting this particular wing of the Stephen King universe. And I hope everybody on the Facebook group has indulged enough of my posts about it. There's been some good conversations. So thank y'all for that.
That's wonderful. Okay, my only endorsement, certainly, let me pick up, by the way. First of all, Stephen King's audiobooks, totally love them. I'm down with that suggestion, and it's a great way to pass your commute. So I will also endorse Comixology, and I don't care about this weird argument that the same people who still order from Amazon every day for some reason are upset over the last week that Amazon acquired Comixology, and somehow they're blaming Amazon acquiring Comixology for the fact that you can't purchase comics through the iPad version of Comixology. But I've had the iPad version and the Google version, the Android version for months, and that feature went away a while ago. Maybe that has to do with Amazon. Maybe it doesn't. It doesn't matter. You can buy your comics online. You can buy them somewhere. You can always access them in the Comixology app. Comixology app is fantastic, and I love it. And it's making comics available to so many people that never would go into a comic book store. So I'm really impressed with it.
Digital comics are going to save this art form. Like everybody for years has been going like, oh, Hollywood's going to save comics. Oh, more newsstand comics are going to save comics. No.
Yeah.
Digital download has made comics an impulse buy again, and that is what this industry has been needing as a shot in the arm.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, and the industry basically did itself a horrible disservice that it didn't see early on. It set a cancer upon itself when it turned all of its attention over to the direct market, which they wanted to do because direct market, of course, is non-returnable. So you sell into the direct market, a store owner buys a copy of Aquaman for $2 and sells it for $3.50, but there's no returns. You can never send Aquaman back to DC, and that's the way that market works. So the publishers got really addicted to that. But there's only so many stores, all right? And most people who don't already go into comic book stores are never, ever going to go into a comic book store. There's work we can do to try to drive them in. There's stuff. But the point is, these electronic means have really changed all of that. And it's another way of getting at the audience. And so I'm a big fan of Comixology. I don't care about the stupid politics of Amazon buying them. If I turn out to be wrong, then I apologize, and people can just debate it with me. But I'm totally going to pick up the next Halloween Man right away.
Well, we got Halloween Man versus the Invisible Man coming up this coming month with a foreword by Jason. So
with a foreword by me, yes. So I've read it already, and I'm going to get it again. So there we go. I wonder if Ben 10 Volume 1 will be on Comixology. Probably will. The one thing that I wanted to endorse, and this is going to sound crazy, is The Car, starring James Brolin. So I was flipping around last night while I was working on my new book, which has nothing whatsoever to do with sheriffs in Utah in the 70s, but I came across The Car, and I watched it. And it is a movie about a souped-up, custom Lincoln Continental possessed by Satan that is basically running people down in a small town. And James Brolin has to stop this damn car. And it is one of the best bad movies I've ever seen. It is truly, in fact, I wouldn't even go that far. Vincent Canby in the New York Times said that they were terrible performances, but they're truly not. They're really great performances of people trying to read lines about an evil car that is haunting their town. It is wonderful. I mean, and, it just shows me, all the many amazing ways that you can get 90 minutes out of a crazy idea. Like, what if a Lincoln were harassing people? So that's my endorsement for the week is The Car, starring James.
Oh, I have a soft spot for that. One of the best, hey, there's a thing such a thing as Christine. We need that, you know. It's one of the better Volcano Dante's Peak things that has come out, and I still like the car. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, what year was?
You know, as somebody that's writing something right now that involves a monstrous car, I think I'm going to have to look to this for inspiration.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I have never seen the car.
It was TV, and it was awesome. Although, you know,
well, listen, no, it's not
bigger.
TV. You're thinking of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what you're thinking of. But first of all, Christine, the novel, came out in '83.
Well, I've seen Christine. I've seen Christine. I've never seen the car.
So no, but the car comes out in 1977. It doesn't know about Christine. What it's a ripoff of is Jaws. Christine is Jaws with a car. I mean, I'm sorry. The car is Jaws with a car, and it's 1977.
Well, no wonder, because when I saw it as a kid, I guess it was the networks bringing it back,
right?
Because Christine had come out, right?
Because of Christine, yeah. And this Lincoln Continental, it is the coolest Lincoln you ever saw, because they take a Lincoln Continental, which is always quite boxy, right? But they're
boxy, but they're good.
Right, but they've that was Funny People, right? That was a reference
about
to
a Volvo.
the Dudley Moore movie.
It was about a Volvo.
Yeah, right. Anyway, in this case, they take a Lincoln Continental and they take all the lines out of it. They give it a matte black paint job. They lower the hood. They make the windshield red and really narrow, like this ugly yellow-red slit. And it has no handles, and it has round, it has like scoops and fins, and it's a beautiful, completely imaginary, demonic car racing across the desert, kicking out dust. This car does things like it's running down a couple of police cruisers. There was one police cruiser coming straight towards it on a country road, and so at the last minute, the car leaps into the air and rolls over, so that it smashes the top of the police cruiser, and then it keeps going. At another point, it drives itself through somebody's house to kill them. This car hates this town, man. It's wonderful.
Okay, but I think you spent enough time on the car.
All right. Yes. Whoever's still around.
The crickets are chirping.
Thank you very much. I hope you continue to pay close attention to the crazy things that we post and get into arguments with us and make suggestions. I have no idea what comes next week. We're definitely going to start doing some giant monsters. We might have some different hosts and mix it up a little bit, because I know I'll be traveling. And
we may take next week off.
We may take next week off. We'll figure this out. But please leave us comments, leave us reviews, like us on Facebook, tell your friends. We want more and more listeners each week. Thank you so much for listening to our review of Stephen King's It. Thanks, Darren, in the chat room, and everybody have a fantastic evening. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Night.